they've never had that level of ownership in a math classroom.
Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms
Hey,
Project
y'all, it's Tony Rose,
podcast.
Deanna, and they, them pronouns, the designated hype person here at MCP, and I am joined by a 7th grade math teacher and the 2026 Kentucky Teacher of the Year and a finalist for the 2026 National Teacher of the Year. She's also a National Board Certified Teacher in Early Adolescence Mathematics, Michelle Gross. I am so excited to be here, so welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Tony Rose. It is so great to be here with you today, to join in and to talk about things that I am passionate about. Modern Classroom Project is one of those.
Yes. And so before we get started, again, thank you for saying yes to the podcast. And I know you're busy with all the travel, with all the teaching, with all the things, right? So before we get started into diving a little bit more about your journey, what is bringing you joy currently?
Well, first, hanging out with you today, Tony Rose, is a joy. And additionally, one of the coolest aspects about being 2026 Kentucky Teacher of the Year is the travel opportunities that I have. I recently got to go to California to Google with other state teachers of the year, and we learned a ton, but the friendships that were formed and the partnerships across the nation that are growing as a result is so joyful. I gained 55 new friends that are just as passionate about teaching and learning as I am.
Oh, and that's so exciting. And I love hearing this journey as well. And it's so wild because I got to see your classroom once before. And then you and I have had lots of conversations as well, which is really dope. And Modern Classrooms is so proud and so happy and of you, and also just like well-deserved, right? Like all the things that you're doing in the classroom are just so phenomenal. And so thank you for sharing that little bit of joy. And I know that I have so many follow-up questions about being the state teacher of the year, right? Because there's so many perks. And like you said, so many connections and networking that's happening. And so thank you for sharing that little piece with us. And so, tell us a little bit about who you are and also how you started your education/MCP journey.
So I am in my 22nd year of teaching. Most of that time has been spent in the 7th grade math classroom. And when I was going through my national board certification process in 2010, I noticed that in order to really, truly get excited and passionate about what I was teaching, it was more project-based learning. And that's where I found the passion. And as a result, I started down that journey of creating projects for my students. But one thing that I was noticing was I didn't have a whole lot of time to spend one-on-one with students. I mean, in certain ways I did, but then also when COVID hit, I was noticing a lot more students were absent and that kind of thing. And so when Modern Classroom Project came around and there was an opportunity for me to learn and grow through that, I found that my students would be able to benefit so much more by me creating videos for them, especially when they were absent, or students who needed extra help. Because after going through COVID, we learned like many students are on completely different pages. And that's always been the case, but it was even more evident. And so I'm able to spend more time sitting one-on-one with students or in small groups with students as a result of being a modern classroom teacher.
Yeah, and I really love seeing your small groups as well because it was so intentional with how you chose your small groups, and it was really beautiful seeing all of your data that you had in front of you, and students could really see and understand why you were pulling them into a small group. So that was like really lovely to see. And so, Michelle, you've said that the foundation of your room is that students are never done. So for a 22-year veteran teacher, which is Wowzy. Thank you so much, right? How do you challenge the kids who just want to finish their work? And what does it look like when they actually start diving into that deep enrichment? And making sure also that it's not just busy work, right? Because we oftentimes, we meaning educators in general, me included, we tend to also just have busy work so that there's that compliance piece that's happening as well and making sure that students are quote unquote well behaved. So how do you challenge the kids who just want to be finished and then also make sure they have that deep enrichment?
So at first, a lot of my students came into my classroom with the mindset that it's just about finishing. And they oftentimes want to just check the box and move on and not necessarily see where it connects. And so one of the cultural shifts that we work on is redefining what the word done means. The past couple of years, our sixth grade math teacher, Daniel Cox, has jumped on the modern classroom project model as well and has made the transition for us in seventh grade go even smoother. And so in our classroom, finishing the assignment just means that you've reached the starting point for deeper thinking. The other seventh grade math teacher and I, Cabral Woods, we work to make our aspire to do activities something that will draw our students in. So whether it is actually cooking a recipe where they're manipulating the ratios that they're learning, or they're finding the distance they'll travel once they get on their Ferris wheel, their favorite Ferris wheel, or they're designing a 3D model of their home, Cabral and I want to make those aspire to do assignments engaging so that our students will complete their must do assignments, which lead to those aspire to do in order to dive even deeper. And we watch a really powerful shift happen. Students who used to just rush through their work to be done, or students who wouldn't even get started or complete a task because it wasn't important to them, now have something to look forward to. So middle schoolers need that hook. And I feel like this has helped with that.
And it's really a really cool thing that you had said too, this vertical alignment, right? How amazing is it to have your sixth grade math teacher also implementing so that students know that done isn't really done, right? This whole redefining piece of the word done is such a good point as well, right? It's like, hey, that means you really did just reach the starting point of deep enrichment. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. Like I want to also implement that in the classrooms that I'm in, right? Regardless of the age of whoever I'm teaching, right? And so I love this vertical alignment and the importance of that collaboration piece. And I love that you gave a shout out to Cabral because I also had a chance to see Cabral's room. And I mean, amazing. The way that you two collaborate with each other is so beautiful and it's very seamless, right? And she was telling me also that like, Michelle, you have the big picture and she's like, I need to see all the little things logistically. And I was like, what a beautiful pair, right? Like, I'm sure it's like, it could be tense at times because you're like, oh, I want to do all of these things. And Cabral has to like reel you in and be like, okay, we can. And we have to be mindful of all of these things. And so I love this piece of collaboration. I love this piece of having, you know, the communication and also thinking about like, how do we work together to better support students and knowing what the strengths and weaknesses are of each partner, right? I love that. And I think that you two really work off of each other really well. And the way that you two talk about each other is just so beautiful. And so I always tell the teachers too, right? Like, hey, when you start doing something new in the classroom, find that teacher bestie, find that like trusted colleague that you have and go with it together so that you can continue brainstorming and throwing ideas at each other and like challenging each other, right? And so another thing that I really appreciate too, Michelle, is that there's real world application when it comes to math, right? Math education is real rough everywhere right now, right? And so, and there's a lot of connotations behind math education because of experiences that are either very, full of shame, right? Full of fear, all of these things when it comes to math. But you and Cabral, right, have realized like, oh man, for us to really reach this deep enrichment, to get students excited, especially seventh graders, like seventh graders are so wild to me. My favorite age group as well, but really wild. But for seventh graders to be excited into doing the Aspire to do's, right, to deeper that enrichment and that engagement as well is so, so, so important to keep in mind as well. And so I really love that you brought up all of these things, and thank you for sharing that. Now, you did talk about this creating the houses, right? And that was something that Kim and I were able to come in and have conversations with you about, because it was supposed to happen. And then, of course, things happened and you had to reschedule it again. So you talked about the recipes, right? Between scaling recipes and building these dream home ramas that you talked about, your students are doing some serious hands-on work, which I absolutely love, because you said project-based learning was something that you really are passionate about. When they're pitching their 3D models to actual architects and realtors, because you do invite the community to come in, which I think is so beautiful, what's the most surprising aha moment they have about how math works in the real world?
I love this question. And first of all, I'm so thankful for Cabral. She's so many times brings me down to earth. And so yes, Cabral, everybody needs an amazing partner teacher to work with. But one of the biggest aha moments that our students have is realizing that math isn't isolated. It is everywhere in the design process. One of my students a couple years ago was interviewed on Dream Home Arama Day, and I thought she had a really good understanding. She had a great answer for this, and she said she didn't understand, even though she was so excited about the project, she didn't realize how much math was involved until she started digging into it. So when they build those Dream Homeorama models and present it to community members, they suddenly see that every design decision that they have has mathematical consequences. If they change the size of a room, that's going to affect the area, which will affect materials, costs, and even flow of the house. And one of the most challenging aspects of the project is moving that math from concrete to abstract. And then back to concrete again, because that's kind of how it is. They see a model, they have to picture it in their heads how it's going to look on paper, and then they have to design it. And so that kind of thinking through can be tough for students to work through. But I love watching them have their own aha moments in the process when they finally start to get it. And that moment it clicks for them is so cool. But then also there's another really cool moment when we invite those professionals, those community members to come in. The students are seeing concepts that they will actually use, like things that they're learning in middle school and how they'll apply it to real life. And then math stops feeling like a worksheet and they start seeing how it's used in the real world. But even cooler is the community gets to see how cool our middle schoolers really are, that they can do some really great things.
And you had such great stories about individual students too, right? Like there was a student who, because you said that there were a lot of applications, right? Of like students who wanted to participate, and you had a higher number of kids who wanted to participate, who did participate. Can you share a little bit about like those individual stories before I butcher them?
Oh, absolutely. So I had a few students this year, but I've seen it every year happen. Kids who normally don't necessarily want to engage in the math. Think about the middle schooler that whenever the work starts happening, they raise their hand to ask to go to the bathroom. Like think about that kid. This project, they are, in their words, locked in. They get so excited. They're excited about what they're doing because they get to choose. I'm not choosing the blueprints for them. If they want to build a barn dominium out in the country, that's wonderful. If they want to build a flat, or at least design the interior design of an apartment that already exists, living in another country, that's for them. They get to choose. And that's the cool aspect about it. All the students are doing the model, but they're getting to choose and they have a vested interest in it because it's not necessarily there is a grade involved, but it's not about the grade. It's about their future. They start thinking about it in a different light.
I love that so much. And I know one of the things that you had said too is that some of the students were even like, wait, I didn't know this was a job. this could be something that I could do. And it's all math. Like what? I mean, it really changes the trajectory, right, of that student's future, or even that mindset of like, wait a minute, this is actually useful. This is actually important. And this is actually interesting, right? Like I love this piece that you said that math isn't isolated. It's literally everywhere. And I know for me, I've shared this with a podcast before, like I have a really interesting / toxic relationship with math. So I'm trying to repair it and understanding that like, yo, I use math all the time with like backing up my car, parallel parking. Like there's so much that I don't even think about that's all math related. So I love this excitement. I love this passion. I love this like connecting with community and kids getting engaged. Like math is fun. And I think like I'm also telling my kid, my inner child that as well of like, math is not scary. It's good. It's actually so much fun. And thank you for sharing that again. And so we're going to switch gears because again, that was like something that's like, it's a huge project that you all have been doing. I think for how many years now, Michelle? It's been happening.
It's been going on for about 10 years now.
For 10 years. Yeah. And it just keeps getting better, which is like so exciting. Right. So when you started implementing the model, there's this self-pacing piece, right? Like, and so when we think about dream homoramas, right? Like how does that even fit into self-pacing? And then also noting, like you noted that kids who struggled with self-pacing at first are now crushing their winter test scores. I'd love to hear that contrast of like in the beginning, right? To now being successful and then also making time for all the fun project-based projects that you have in the classroom. How does that look? How do you coach a student through that initial like freak out when they realize that they're finally the ones in the driver's seat?
Oh, wow. That's really good. That moment for the students is so real. I think about so many students who walk into the math classroom with math anxiety. You mentioned it. I have had multiple conversations with people who mention just, I'm not good at math. Or even people who say they hate math, like they're passionate about it. And the thought of self-pacing, some students are very excited about the independence, but other students feel overwhelmed at first because they've never had that level of ownership in a math classroom. So my role these past few years have shifted, thinking about what projects look in my classroom and how that might change, or not even necessarily change, but just shift. There's a simple shift with partnering with Modern Classroom Project. And I think it's a beautiful partnership. Instead of standing and me teaching the majority of the time and tacking projects out on the end, I get to showcase the project more like an umbrella over the entire unit. And then we work through our progress tracker as part of like spokes of that umbrella and how it all leads into the project. So it's not something that you do extra. It becomes the overarching umbrella of the unit, and the videos and the practice problems and the mastery checks all are designed to get you there to that final project. So my role has shifted these past few years. Instead of standing and teaching, I'm getting to sit down with smaller groups of students and help them not only with their math, but help them with goal setting. Maybe even like completing one lesson or mastering one concept before moving on. I realize that students work at different paces, and I've always realized that. But it's very important for me to keep sight of that, especially when my students are progressing in completely different ways. And I have to keep at the forefront of my mind that it's about progress instead of perfection. And same with my students, teaching that to my students. Once my students start seeing that they can move forward at their own pace and actually understand the material, their confidence grows quickly. Otherwise, they'll shut down. So by the middle of the year, many of my students who were most nervous about the MCP system are now thriving in it. And that's really cool to watch.
And I think the biggest thing too that you've said is like there's that modeling piece, right? Like the progress, not perfection that you mentioned is like I also have to show that as a teacher so that my students can see that I too am living what I'm saying, right? It's like the whole talk the talk, walk the walk kind of thing. And I love that you again pointed out that math anxiety because it's so real for so many people. And then to add an extra layer of like now you're going to do it on your own. If I were a student, I would be like, what? What you mean? You're not going to hold my hand anymore. And so it's just so real in that case too, right? And it's totally natural for human beings to be afraid of something that's new, right? To freak out a little bit. And so to not meet that freak out with another freak out is really great too, of like, you know what? No, we're going to get through this together. We're going to continue moving along. And so I really love that.
Hey there, listeners. This is Zach with a quick announcement for the week of April 19th, 2026. You can join the Modern Classrooms Project on June 23rd for the Leadership Collective Summit 2026. It's a free, virtual event for K-12 school and district leaders. This year's theme is personalized by design, and it's built around a core belief. Every student learns differently, and the best learning communities are built to act on that. You'll hear from principals, district leaders, and coaches from across the country who are making instruction more human through mastery-based, student-centered approaches and getting real results. Every session is led by practitioners and designed to give you strategies you can act on this fall. Registration info is in the show notes for this episode, but now let's get back into it with Michelle and Tony Rose.
In the beginning, you also mentioned about your one-on-ones, which I think a lot of the times, as a secondary teacher myself, right, I always thought that small groups and one-on-ones are great in elementary school. And then you go to middle and high school and it's like, wait, I don't actually know how to do that. That was something that was not taught for me at all. And so I only learned how to do it effectively. I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it as efficient, as effectively as I could when I started implementing the model, right? And so you had mentioned your one-on-one and your small groups. We talked about that earlier. And I know for me, I hate it when my student would ask, what did I miss? Especially because, they went to they were sick, they're absent, they're not there, they were pulled out for whatever reason, right? But you've really managed to get rid of it, which I absolutely love. And so you talk about not spending your time playing catch up anymore and being in front of the classroom. And so how do you handle, or not even handle, but how do you manage your one-on-one connections? Because the class that I visited as well, you had a co-teacher and y'all did such a phenomenal job of like whole group. And this whole group was like 5 minutes, maybe like 7 minutes, right? Not more than that. And then the students got to start it with their self-pacing. You pulled a small group, your co-teacher also pulled a small group, Sarah, and y'all just did a great job of like doing that one-on-one connections and small group connections as well. But do you have anything else that you wanted to add on that you haven't said already?
Yeah, I think balance is so important because it can't just be all self-paced. It can't just be all whole class. It needs to be a balance. And so one of the biggest gifts of this self-paced structure is time. By having it set up, the organization of it, when students know exactly where to find the lessons, when they know where the resources are, how to practice, what to practice, when they have the progress tracker that they can work through, they can jump in and jump back in without needing whole class time to stop and review. It's kind of taking away those little time wasters, and all those little time wasters tend to take up a big chunk of the time if you're not organized. And so that time frees me up where it matters most with my students. Instead of reteaching an entire math lesson to the entire group who may or may not need it, I'm getting to sit with small groups of students, ask them questions about their thinking, help them work through misconceptions, just give them a little tap, like, you got to get this finished. You got to work, like they need that. And, or pushing them to extend their learning with Aspire to Do activities. It's those moments where our relationships are built. I find that my relationships with my students have gotten even stronger with the MCP model. And that's where powerful learning happens because we get to have those one-on-ones. Those students who normally will not speak up in front of a whole group are way more prone to ask questions and to answer questions in a small group or one-on-one setting.
Thank you for sharing that again, right? This one-on-one, the relationship piece is really important because then you get to know your students and you can figure out how to push them and motivate them and figure out like what is going to get them more engaged. And I love that piece as well. You had mentioned time wasters. Oh my gosh, we're so good at time wasters. Not we meaning students and teachers, right? Like it's not just the students. The students will find all the time to waste, like all the things, right? All the ways to waste time. And I think teachers also do it unintentionally because, like you said, we're not prepared or we didn't think about that as far as organization is concerned, right? And I think this is another thing that I absolutely love about you and your team with Sarah and Cabral too, of like, y'all really thought about what are the ways to not waste time, right? Like, oh, you're going to know where everything is just so that we're not wasting time once again. And so I love that piece too of like everything is transparent, everything is clear. Students know exactly what to do. And you had also said like it's really important to have that balance, right? Of like not doing all self-pacing because that is going to be, as an adult with ADHD, I would not thrive in that as well. Like I need to have that collaboration piece. I need to have that small group piece. I need to have that one-on-one check-in. And so I really love that you create those systems with your students. And again, just beautiful. Like whenever Kim and I go to Spencer County, we're just like, oh, it's just heaven here. We love it here. We want to come every single time. And it's just such a joy to see you all work together. Now, I do have a follow-up question about your co-teaching. Your co-teaching ways, right? Did Sarah also do the MCP training? How do y'all plan together? How do you communicate? Because not only do you have Cabral who teaches 7th grade math with you, but you also have Sarah who does SPED, right? That's SPED with you as a co-teacher in your class. How does that work?
Yes. So Sarah also went through the modern classroom training and she is in the modern classroom illustrative math pilot program with me as well. And so that is a huge benefit because she understands the model and understands how it works. And I mean, this is one of those aspects where I evaluate so many of the ways that I teach based on does it work for the majority? And so if it doesn't work for our students who have IEP goals, then it's not going to work, And so this one does. This works very, very well. Sarah is able to help with the organization aspect of it. Also, when we're pulling small groups, I can pull 5, she can pull 5. Now we've pulled almost half the class, which is really cool. And if we get 2 to 3 small groups in a class period, we've been able to meet with every single student in that class period, which is really neat. And the way it looks in the classroom, it doesn't just look like she's not just pulling certain kids. She's pulling small groups who have individual needs at this time, and I'm pulling small groups, and it flows really well. And it doesn't necessarily look like one teacher in the room and one assistant. We're both working the classroom as a shared in a shared space. And so she's been amazing to work with. And she gets it. She definitely understands how that works. And she also has a good perspective on when things are not working. And she can bring that up and we can reflect and we can refine because it's not always going to be perfect. And I love having her to bounce ideas off of. And she'll say, well, that was good. How about we try, or how about we think about it this way? And then we make those changes. And that has really helped.
And again, speaking to that relationship piece, right? Like not just having a relationship with your students and making sure that you know them well, but also having that great working relationship with your coworkers too, so that you can continue to push each other and challenge each other. And I think that's like another thing that I really love about your team, Michelle, is that you all are very receptive to feedback, very open-minded and curious as well of like, oh yeah, that was not great. So, and there's no, like, you all don't take it personally. It's just like, okay, yeah, it's like you said, it's progress, not perfection. We're going to mess up together. We're going to do well together. It's going to all be beautiful. Right. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Kentucky Teacher of the Year, Michelle. This is amazing. Congratulations again. Such a flex for me to be like, I know Michelle. I love that. And so you've really talked about building a culture across Kentucky where every student's voice is uplifted, right? And this is such a beautiful goal and such a beautiful like a why to keep right in our minds. And so for a teacher who's nervous about moving away from a more traditional way of teaching and learning for how they were taught, right? What's the first small step you tell them to take when it comes to having the student's voice uplifted?
I have been telling teachers that you don't have to change everything overnight. You have to start small. When I was first introduced to the Modern Classroom Project, I was encouraged to try it with one math unit rather than think of doing it for the entire year. And that gave me time to prepare and to implement and to reflect. And in true MCP fashion, at my own pace. And that experience helped me see this model not only as a teacher, but as a student. And as a result, I bought in pretty quickly to this model because I saw the benefit of it for me. And so one of the most powerful first steps is to simply give students more of an opportunity to think and to explore, rather than the teacher doing all of the talking and being in full control of the classroom all the time. Let's think about creating spaces for students to discuss strategies, to ask questions, to respond to each other, give them that time to think. And when students start realizing that their ideas matter in the classroom, the culture begins to shift. And from there, the teachers can gradually begin to build more student ownership into the learning process.
I swear, Michelle, I could listen to you talk all day and I can watch you teach all day. Goodness. Yes, that was so beautiful. I don't have anything else to add on. That was it, right? Like mic drop. That's it. Are there any other parting words that you want to share with our listeners?
I think that one of the most important things that we can remember as educators is that learning is deeply human. Students want to feel seen and heard and valued in the classrooms. Same with us. We do too. So when we create environments where our students have voice and ownership and find meaning in the work that they do, then incredible things can happen. It's not just about the academic growth, although that is a huge benefit, but it gives students confidence and curiosity. And the best part of that, when students experience that kind of learning, the impact doesn't just stop at the end of the unit or the end of the school year. It carries them forth through adulthood.
I lied. That was the mic drop. Yes, Michelle, learning is deeply human and we are all humans, right? Like biggest reminder is that we are human being, not human doing. So, yes, Michelle, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your expertise and your experiences and just all the gems you dropped in this episode. And listeners, we'll put all of the things that you need to know about Michelle in the show links, so no need to do all the Google searches about all the great things that she's doing. But Michelle, I just appreciate you. Just thank you for being you. Thank you for continuing to show up for students. Thank you for making math fun. Thank you for always just being such a joy whenever I am around you. So thank you for all of that.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so fun for me. And this is something that, clearly I'm deeply passionate about and just excited to share that with others. And I just thank you for being so complimentary of Spencer County and our community. I'm Spencer County proud. And so thank you for that. And you are invited anytime. We love having you here.
Oh, I will be there every time I get an invite. So yes, yes, and yes. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much for listening. Listeners, remember you can always email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org, and you can find the links to topics and tools we discussed, as well as more info on this week's announcements and events in the show notes for this episode at podcast.modernclassrooms.org. We'll have this episode's recap and transcript uploaded to the Modern Classrooms blog on Friday, so be sure to check there or check back in the show notes for this episode if you'd like to access those. And if you enjoy our podcast and it's been helpful in supporting you to create a blended, self-paced, mastery-based learning environment, we would love if you could leave a review. That does help other folks find our podcast. And of course, you can always learn the essentials of our model, if you want to go beyond the podcast, through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. And you can follow us on social media at modernclassproj. That's PROJ. We are so appreciative of all the hard work you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.